Mia had always been different from the other children in her neighborhood. She was small, gentle, and quiet, yet she carried herself with the steadiness of someone far older. People often said she moved like someone who had learned to survive storms. Her big brown eyes told stories she never spoke. And her soft smile appeared even on days when nothing seemed worth smiling about. She was only 9, but she already handled chores, managed schoolwork, and kept the house in order in ways that impressed even grown adults. Her mother, Rachel, used to call her my little light. But after Rachel died unexpectedly 2 years ago, that light dimmed. Nate, Rachel's second husband, moved on faster than anyone expected. He blended charm and cruelty the way some men blended sugar into tea so casually that most people didn't notice at first. But Mia noticed. She always noticed. Nate liked power, and he liked the feeling of being above others. He hated that Mia reminded him of Rachel Kind, bright and untouched by the darkness he carried. Instead of protecting her after her mother's death, he treated her like an inconvenience. Chores were never enough. Mistakes were never forgiven. If Mia spilled water, he would sigh loudly, muttering about how useless she was. If she cried, he told her tears were a waste of time. Still, Mia endured it. She kept her head down, swept the floors, folded laundry, and whispered goodnight to the photograph of her mother tucked under her pillow. She believed that if she stayed strong, maybe life would stop hurting. One afternoon, the air held a strange heaviness. Nate told Mia to stay near the living room and keep herself clean. He even brushed her hair roughly, trying to flatten it as if she were a doll. Mia kept asking why, but he answered with silence and impatience. Then there was a knock on the door. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped inside. He wore a heavy gold ring and cologne that filled the room with a scent that made Mia's stomach twist. Nate greeted him with fake warmth, the kind he usually reserved for people he wanted favors from. The man's eyes scanned the room until they landed on Mia. She felt her fingers curl. Tightly together, Nate guided the man toward the dining table, while Mia stood stiffly near the hallway. They spoke in low voices at first, but soon the conversation grew clearer. She's young, quiet, obedient, Nate said, as if listing the qualities of an object. The man nodded, his gaze sliding back to Mia. You said the arrangement would be private. It will be, Nate assured. I just need the money. You'll get what you want. Mia's heart slammed against her ribs. She wasn't old enough to fully understand what they meant, but she knew enough to know the danger. Her breath grew shallow and her legs trembled. She wanted to run, but she also knew Nate would notice. The man stood and approached her slowly, like someone inspecting merchandise. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Nate watched proudly, as if expecting praise. Mia stepped backward, her voice barely a whisper. I want to go to my room. Stay where you are, Nate said sharply. The man lifted her chin with 2 fingers, examining her face. She'll do. Those 2 words sank into her like cold water. Nate grinned, shaking the man's hand. Then we have a deal. That night, Mia lay awake, wide-eyed, trembling, and hugging her pillow so tightly it wrinkled beneath her fingers. She didn't sleep, not even for a second. Nate paced the hallway on the phone, whispering excitedly about pickup day and money transferred. By morning, Mia's fear had sharpened into something new, something fierce and quiet. She didn't know what revenge was yet, but she knew she would not let Nate decide her fate. She went to school like normal, but her mind was spinning. She told no one what happened. She couldn't. Tears threatened every time she remembered that stranger's hand on her chin. Yet in the middle of her fear came a thought she couldn't ignore. Nate had always underestimated her. He thought she was small, powerless, fragile. But Mia had her mother's heart. And Rachel had taught her one truth that Mia clung to now. When people hurt you, don't let them break you. There is always a way out. There is always someone who will help you. But first, you have to speak. Her mother's voice echoed in her head with every step she took through the school hall. At lunch, Mia sat alone as always, but today she wasn't staring at her food. She was staring at Miss Harper, the teacher, who always smiled at her, who always noticed when she was quiet, who once gave her a warm sandwich when she forgot her lunch. Mia swallowed hard. She could stay silent and hope things changed, or she could open her mouth and save herself. After lunch, she walked up to Miss Harper. Her hands shook. Her lips trembled. But she forced the words out. I need help. Miss Harper immediately knelt to her level. Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong? Mia's eyes brimmed with tears. But this time they weren't from fear. They were from the weight lifting off her chest. It's about Nate, she whispered. He wants to give me to someone. A man. For money. Miss Harper's face changed instantly. Concern sharpened into something protective and fierce. She took Mia by the hand and guided her to the counselor's office. Within minutes, calls were made, police were contacted, and social services got involved by the time classes ended. Officers were already waiting at her house. Nate wasn't smiling when he opened the door this time. He wasn't prepared for the questions, the investigation, the truth unraveling around him. They found messages, bank transfers, conversations on his phone that exposed everything. It didn't take long before Nate was handcuffed and taken away. Mia watched from the police car, wrapped in a soft blanket someone had given her, and for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of going home because this time home wasn't with Nate. Instead, she was placed with a temporary guardian named Leela, a warm-hearted woman who welcomed her gently and made her hot soup the moment she stepped inside that night. Mia finally slept. Deep, peaceful, safe sleep. But the story wasn't over. Justice had begun, but revenge, the kind that healed, the kind that transformed, was still waiting for her. She didn't want to hurt anyone, but she wanted the world to know what Nate truly was. She wanted every child who felt small and voiceless to learn from her courage. And she wanted to grow strong enough to confront her past without trembling. Her revenge would not be violence. Her revenge would be truth, strength, and rising above everything Nate tried to break. And part of her, even as she slept, already knew this was only the beginning. The first morning in Lila's home felt unreal to Mia. She woke up slowly, blinking at the soft yellow glow filtering through curtains she didn't recognize. For a moment, she panicked, her hand shot to the side, expecting Nate's heavy footsteps or his irritated voice. But all she heard was the quiet hum of a house where no one was angry. No one was watching her like a burden. The room was small but warm, decorated with soft pastel blankets, a teddy bear on the dresser, and a tiny plant near the window. Lila had said, "This room will be yours until you feel at home." Mia never had a room that belonged to her. The thought alone made her throat tighten. She climbed out of bed, feet touching a rug that felt like clouds. She walked out slowly, expecting to be scolded for waking up late. Instead, she found Lila in the kitchen, humming softly as she cooked breakfast. Lila turned and smiled. "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" Mia nodded, unsure how to respond to kindness. Her voice was small when she spoke. "I didn't wake up once." "That's how it should be," Lila said, sliding a warm plate across the table. "Eat as much as you like." As Mia picked up her fork, she felt an unfamiliar sensation: safety. It settled around her like a blanket she had never been offered before. She still flinched when Lila moved too quickly or when a door shut too loudly. But Lila always noticed, always softened her movements, always reminded her nothing bad would happen here. School felt different now, too. Ms. Harper hugged her gently when she returned and told her she was brave. The words stuck to her heart like a seed waiting to grow. But even with all the support, nightmares still chased her at night. Nate's voice, the stranger's cold eyes, the whispered deal, they lurked in corners of her mind like shadows that refused to fade. The police were building a case. Social workers checked on her every week. Therapists talked to her patiently. But Mia didn't want to be just a child rescued. She wanted to be someone who didn't break. Someone who helped others the way Ms. Harper helped her. As weeks passed, she began writing in a notebook Leela gave her. At first it was only short sentences, little pieces of thoughts like, "I am not weak. I survived. He can't hurt me anymore. But slowly, the pages filled with more. She wrote memories, fears, dreams. She wrote about her mom, about how much she missed her, about how she wished Rachel could see her growing stronger. One day, Lila walked into the living room to find Mia sitting at the coffee table. Notebook open, jaw set with determination. "What are you working on?" Lila asked. Mia hesitated, then pushed the notebook toward her. "I want to write my story." Lila's eyes softened. "That's a powerful thing to do." "I want people to know what happened," Mia whispered. "I want other kids to know they can tell someone, that they don't have to stay quiet." Lila nodded. "That's real courage, Mia." For the first time, Mia believed that word might truly belong to her. Months passed, and the day of Nate's court hearing arrived. Mia wore a simple dress Leela had bought her hair neatly braided, her notebook held tightly in her hands. Her heart thudded with fear, but also with something stronger resolve. She entered the courtroom with Lila by her side. The ceiling felt impossibly tall, and the wooden benches smelled of old memories. Officers, lawyers, and strangers filled the room. But Mia only saw one person, Nate. He sat in handcuffs, looking smaller than she remembered. His eyes darted around nervously, but when he spotted her, his expression shifted anger, mixed with disbelief. Like he couldn't understand how a little girl had undone him. Mia's stomach twisted. Every instinct told her to lower her gaze, to shrink, to disappear. But something in her refused. She lifted her chin and met his eyes head-on. He looked away first. The judge called for testimony. And when Mia's turn came, her legs trembled. Lila squeezed her hand. Ms. Harper smiled from the back of the room. With a deep breath, Mia stepped forward. She opened her notebook, taught her voice shook at first. "My name is Mia. And Nate tried to sell me." Nate flinched. She continued, stronger now. She spoke of the fear she lived with, the nights she stayed awake to avoid his anger, the day he brought a stranger into their home, the way he talked about her like she wasn't human. Her words cut through the silence like a blade. People listened with clenched jaws, misty eyes, and quiet fury. When she finished, the judge paused for a long moment before thanking her. Mia returned to her seat, heart pounding, but full of something she never thought she would feel again: power. The verdict came later that afternoon. Nate was sentenced to years in prison, charged with human trafficking, exploitation, and child endangerment. Mia didn't cheer, didn't smile. The weight in her chest didn't disappear instantly, but it loosened just enough for her to breathe deeply for the first time. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Lila gently tried to shield Mia, but one of the reporters approached with a microphone. "Sweetheart, do you have anything you want to say?" Lila looked unsure, but Mia stepped forward. She didn't want revenge through violence or cruelty. She wanted revenge through truth and strength. She wanted her voice to echo. She lifted her chin and spoke. Not as a victim, but as someone who survived hell and refused to stay silent. "I want kids to know. If someone hurts you or scares you, you tell someone. Don't be afraid. You can be safe again." Her words spread across the news, across social media, across countless hearts. Messages poured in from teachers, parents, counselors, and survivors thanking her for her bravery. Mia didn't fully understand the impact she made, but she felt it like a warm light growing inside her, pushing the darkness back further each day. Life at Lila's home grew fuller. Mia joined a writing club, made her first real friend, and became someone people admired without even trying. Therapy helped her understand her fears, her triggers, her strength. She learned she didn't have to carry everything alone. But even with her world expanding, something within her kept whispering. Not anger, not hatred. Something different. "You survived, Mia. But there is more to do." Revenge wasn't about hurting Nate. It was about rising beyond everything he tried to destroy. It was about making sure children who felt trapped found a way out. It was about becoming the kind of strength she needed when she was scared and alone. And Mia, slowly, quietly, was becoming exactly that. Months turned into a year. and her notebook filled with stories, memories, pain, and healing. She was invited to speak at small events about child safety and courage. She always got nervous, always shook a little before speaking, but every time she saw the faces of kids listening to her, she knew she was doing something that mattered. She wasn't the little girl Nate tried to sell anymore. She was becoming something powerful, something unbreakable, something he could never control. Her revenge had already begun, but its full force hadn't yet arrived. It was coming, and it would change everything. Mia grew taller, her shoulders straighter, her eyes brighter than anyone expected after what she had survived. The nightmares still came sometimes, but they no longer defined her. Every morning she wrote in her notebook. Every afternoon she helped Lila in the kitchen. Every night she whispered to herself before bed, "I'm safe now." But scars didn't vanish. They reshaped themselves. One afternoon, while Mia was returning from school, she noticed a small group of kids standing under a tree near the gate. A younger girl, maybe 6 or 7, stood in the middle, clutching her backpack to her chest as older students teased her. Mia froze. She knew that look, the shrinking shoulders, silent, pleading eyes, the fear of speaking without thinking. She marched forward. "Leave her alone," Mia said, her voice firm. The older kids turned. "Or what?" Mia didn't look away. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stood there, steady and unafraid, the same way she had faced Nate in the courtroom. Something in her expression made the bullies hesitate. They backed away with muttered annoyance and walked off. The little girl stared up at her with wide eyes. Thank you." Mia knelt to her level. "You don't let anyone scare you. And if they do, you tell someone. Always." The little girl nodded vigorously. Mia walked home feeling something heavy settle into something solid inside her. This feeling of helping someone else carry their fear was powerful, stronger than any punishment Nate could ever face behind bars. Revenge wasn't fire or fury. It was growth, protection, turning her pain into someone else's strength. That night, as she wrote in her notebook, she paused and stared at the blank page. A thought formed, clear, bold, unshakable. "I want to help more kids." The idea lived in her mind like a spark ready to ignite. A few weeks later, Ms. Harper asked Mia to stay after school. When the classroom emptied, the teacher pulled out a stack of letters. "You've been receiving these," she said gently. "Parents and teachers who saw your interview. They want you to speak at their events, to tell your story, to encourage kids not to stay silent." Mia blinked. "Me? Yes, you. Your voice carries weight, Mia." She ran her fingers over the envelopes, each one addressed carefully, respectfully. She felt small and big at the same time. "But I'm just a kid." Ms. Harper smiled. "And that's exactly why you matter." Over the next months, Mia spoke in libraries, small community gatherings, and school assemblies. Each time she stood on stage, her hands trembled. But each time she finished, the applause felt like a wave of warmth washing over her. Parents hugged her gently. Kids came up to her with teary eyes. Some whispered things they had never told anyone. She listened, comforted, encouraged. She was becoming something she didn't imagine. Possible, a voice that opened doors others were scared to touch. But revenge doesn't always stay quiet. One autumn morning, Mia found a letter in the mailbox addressed to her personally. Her stomach twisted when she saw the handwriting. Sharp, familiar, cold it was. Nate's. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter was short. "You think you won? You didn't. I'll get out someday. And when I do, you'll regret everything." The world around Mia blurred. The air felt heavy, thick. Lila came running when she heard Mia's choked gasp. She grabbed the letter, her face turning rigid with anger. "No, no. He doesn't get to scare you anymore," Lila said firmly. But the fear was already clawing at Mia's chest. Lila called the police immediately. The next day, an officer visited them. "You don't need to worry," he assured her. "He's not getting out anytime soon. And sending a threatening letter violates several conditions. His privileges will be revoked. Still, no matter how many times adults tried to reassure her, the panic lingered. For the first time in months, Mia crawled into Leela's bed at night and cried quietly. What if he comes back? What if he finds me? She whispered into Lila's shirt. He won't, Lila whispered back. But listen to me carefully. Even if he tried, he wouldn't find the same girl he left behind. Mia wanted to believe that. She wanted her strength to drown out her fear. But the shadows of her past crept back for several nights. Then, one morning, something shifted. She woke up angry not at herself. Not at the world, but at Nate. Angry that even from behind bars he tried to steal her peace. Angry that he thought he still held power over her. Her fear hardened into a quiet determination. No more, she said aloud that day. As she sat in front of her notebook, her pencil stayed poised for a long while before she began to write a new chapter not of her pain, but of her fight. She wrote about finding her voice. She wrote about helping others. She wrote about turning fear into fire. When she finished, she tore out the page, folded it neatly, and tucked it into an envelope. She addressed it to the same prison Nate was in. Lila hesitated when Mia asked her to mail it. Are you sure you want to talk to him? It's not for him, Mia replied softly. It's for me. Lila nodded and mailed it. The letter said only one thing. You didn't break me. And you never will. Weeks passed. No response came. And for the first time, Mia felt nothing about it, not fear, not anger, just closure, but her path wasn't finished. One afternoon, while walking home from school, she stumbled upon a park where a small crowd was gathering. A woman stood in the center, organizing flyers and setting up chairs. Are you here for Youth Safety Week? The woman asked. Mia shook her head. What is it? It's a community program to help kids understand danger signs, how to speak up, how to get help. It's the first time we're doing this. We hoped someone experienced might speak, but we couldn't find anyone. Mia felt something warm spark in her chest. I think I can help, she said softly. The woman's eyes widened. Wait, you're Mia, aren't you? The girl from the news? Mia nodded. Would you speak for us? It doesn't have to be long. Just something. That evening, standing in front of dozens of kids and parents, Mia spoke with a strength she didn't recognize in herself. Her voice no longer trembled. Her eyes didn't dart around the room. She spoke like someone who had climbed out of darkness and learned to carry the light with her children. Approached her afterward, some crying silently, some hugging her. One little boy whispered, My uncle scares me. I didn't know I could tell anyone. Mia knelt and held his hands gently. You can, and you should. That night, Lila tucked Mia into bed, smoothing her hair gently. Do you realize what you're doing? She whispered. Mia yawned softly. Helping? No, sweetheart. You're healing the world by healing yourself. For the first time, those words didn't feel too big for her. In the following months, news of Mia's talk spread. Schools invited her, charity groups reached out, and people wrote letters thanking her. She didn't seek attention, didn't care for fame. She just wanted to reach one more child. One more scared voice hiding in silence. Revenge was no longer a bitter word tied to Nate. Revenge was becoming the storm that protected others from the very darkness she had lived through. Revenge was rising so high that nothing he did could drag her back down. Revenge was becoming Hope. And Mia, without realizing it, had become unstoppable. She still had one final step ahead. One moment that would give her peace forever. Something big was coming. Something that would tie every loose thread of her past and her strength into one powerful ending. The moment that would complete her revenge, not through hurt, but through triumph. Winter settled over the city like a soft gray blanket, and Mia found herself staring out her bedroom window, watching snowflakes drift down in slow spirals. Life had become gentle again. Slow mornings, school days filled with laughter, evenings spent cooking with Lila. She felt lighter, stronger, even hopeful. But there was one thing she didn't know yet. Nate was being transferred. Late one night, Lila received a phone call. She stepped outside to answer it, her voice low and tense. And when she re-entered the apartment, her expression was tight. Mia, she said softly. "We need to talk." Mia froze. "Is he getting out?" "No," Leela said quickly. "He's not being released, but he's being moved to a different facility. They need some paperwork reviewed, and since you're part of the case, the investigators want to meet you." Mia's heart thudded painfully. She thought she had closed that chapter forever. But something in Lila's eyes told her she wasn't being forced. She was being offered. "You don't have to go," Lila said. "You're under no obligation. You've done enough." But Mia felt something deep in her chest and ache. A weight she didn't realize she was still carrying. She wasn't afraid of Nate anymore. She wasn't the trembling little girl he had controlled. The thought of seeing him didn't freeze, hurt solidified her. "I want to go," she whispered. The next morning was quiet and tense. Snow covered the ground like cold cotton as they drove toward the courthouse. Mia held her notebook tightly in her lap, not writing, just holding. It's as if her strength lived inside it. Inside the building, the air was cold, the walls too white. A detective approached them, kind-eyed and calm. "You're very brave for doing this," he said softly. Mia didn't feel brave. She felt focused. They led her to a small room with 2 chairs and a large window on one wall. A one-way glass. Behind it was Nate, reviewing documents with officers on the other side. Mia couldn't see him yet. "You can observe." The detective said gently, "If at any point you want to leave, we'll walk you out. No questions." Mia nodded, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle and stepped into the viewing room. And there he was, Nate, older, rougher, his hair unkempt, beard patchy, eyes dull with exhaustion and bitterness. He looked nothing like the towering monster in her memories. He looked small, shrunk, broken by his own cruelty. His hands shook slightly as he signed papers. His shoulders slumped. His breaths were heavy. Uneven dot for a moment, Mia's breath stopped. Not out of fear, out of realization, all these years. She imagined him as a giant shadow still lurking behind her. But the man sitting on the other side of the glass wasn't a shadow. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't even powerful. He was just a man. A weak, angry, pathetic man. Her heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. In fact, she felt a strange calmness. Like a long-closed door opening at last. This was revenge, not anger, not fire, not striking back. This was seeing the truth. She stepped closer to the glass and whispered. So quietly, only she could hear it. "You don't get to own my fear anymore." As if sensing her presence, though he couldn't see her, Nate lifted his head. His face twisted with frustration at something the officer said, and he slammed his fist on the table. He was unraveling his control, his pride, his power. It's all falling apart. Mia felt nothing but release. The detective looked at her carefully. "Do you want to leave?" "No," Mia said, stepping away from the glass. "I'm done here." And she walked out without looking back. Outside, the cold air filled her lungs, crisp and clean. Something shifted inside her. Something she had been holding for years, the weight of fear, of memory, of helplessness. It all loosened. It all drifted away, like snow blowing in the wind. She had seen the monster. He wasn't a monster at all. He was already defeated long before she arrived. On the drive home, Leela squeezed her hand. "How do you feel?" "Free," Mia whispered. The next chapter of her life began quietly. But quietly didn't mean small. Her talks became larger. Bigger schools invited her. A youth protection organization asked her to speak at a national event. Filmmakers contacted Lila asking if they could tell Mia's story. She said no to most requests. She didn't care for spotlights, she cared for purpose. One afternoon, her school principal asked if Mia would be willing to help start a peer support program for students. "It could make a huge difference," he said shyly. "You'd be helping so many." Mia didn't hesitate. "I want to do it." The program launched with just 5 students at first. But within months, dozens joined. Kids found comfort in talking to someone their age who understood fear and silence and courage. Mia didn't always know what to say, but she listened. And listening mattered more than perfect words. Her influence grew without her trying. One evening, Lila showed her a newspaper article. Local Girl Starts program helping trauma survivors. Her bravery is lighting a path for others. The headline read, Mia read the article twice before quietly folding it and sliding it into her notebook. But her revenge story wasn't finished yet. There was one final, unexpected moment waiting to close the book forever. Months later, Mia was invited to speak at a state conference on children's justice. The audience was large judges, teachers, social workers, officers, families. Mia stepped onto the stage in a simple dress, her hands trembling only slightly. She spoke about silence, about fear, about the courage it takes to speak the truth even when your voice shakes. She spoke about healing, about growing past your past, about protecting others. She didn't mention Nate's name once. He didn't deserve to be part of her future. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Some cried. Some hugged their children. Some looked at Mia with awe and admiration she didn't feel she deserved as she walked backstage. A woman approached her quietly, tears in her eyes. "My daughter." "She spoke today," the woman whispered, voice breaking. "She never told anyone before. You gave her that courage." Mia's throat tightened. "I'm glad she's safe now." The woman hugged her tightly. "You saved her." The words hit Mia like a warm wave. Saved, not broken, not silenced, not forgotten. Saved. And she realized suddenly, overwhelmingly, that everything she had endured, every scar, every tear, every sleepless night, had transformed into something powerful. Her revenge wasn't against Nate anymore. It was against the darkness he tried to pull her into, and she had won. The final twist came months later. In a single letter delivered to their apartment. This time, it wasn't from Nate. It was from the prison warden. Inside was a simple note. Due to repeated violations, aggressive behavior and threats, Nathaniel Pierce's privileges have been revoked permanently. He will not have access to mail. He is under maximum security watch indefinitely. Lila read the letter aloud, then looked at Mia. "She can't hurt you anymore," she said softly. "He can't even reach the world outside his cell." Mia took the letter and read it again. She felt nothing about not to know fear. No anger, no sadness, just closure. She folded the letter and tucked it at the back of her notebook, not because she needed it, but because it was proof of something she had always hoped for. Her story didn't end in darkness. It rose into light. Years passed. Mia grew into a young woman full of strength and quiet power. Her support program spread to other schools. She earned awards she didn't care for but accepted politely. Survivors wrote to her, thanking her for helping them find their voices. One night, as she sat alone on the balcony watching the stars, she whispered into the night sky, "This is my life now, not his." And in the silence that followed, she finally felt whole. She wasn't just a survivor. She wasn't just a symbol. She wasn't just the girl who defeated her past. She was the girl who turned revenge into healing, pain into power, silence into a storm, and darkness into a legacy of light. Her story had not been stolen. She had reclaimed it, and now it belonged entirely to her.